everybody, and happy Saturday afternoon. This is Dan from the House of Broken Dobbs Things. You can hear the sump overrunning because we've had solid rain for 2 days here in Michigan. And I'm back to working on the Boyar Schultz. This will be part 4. Got most everything straightened up, cleaned up. I was just finishing up checking the spindle. Good news is it's not bent. I was just using a old antique Boyar Schultz, not Boyar Schultz, a old DAC from England. You can see this cleaned up very nice. There wasn't much necessary. Yeah, you can see some staining, but there's no raised ridges or anything like that. Got some additional pictures to this one. I'm going to try to get this done fairly quickly today for sake of time and everything. And this shaft has really not many good reference points. See, my bench is not quite level. Alright, we'll be taking this and putting it in the freezer and getting it ready to install the bearings. I've got some picture stills I'll put on the screen for you about the bearings. Shows a little bit better as far as that. We've got the Kluber grease installed. I've got that in a picture so you can see it. We took the 205 SS and we were able to pop off the shields with no issue. This is a Barden 205 SS and no problems at all. Got it apart and no issues there. One of the things I want to share with you today, as I was goofing off, was some of the elements of the teardown inspection that I was going through, and I'm finding a couple of interesting things. For those of you that watch some of my Volvo videos, these are leftovers from where we were training our puppy, Indiana, and they make very nice table overlays. They're puppy pads. And very low dust on the plasticized side, and kind of nice for the bench. As you know, I've still got stuff scattered all over. But I want to show you one thing that's really interesting you might find. Okay, this is a spindle head. It's been cleaned up. If you see any thing going on as far as wetness or whatever, that is fluid film. I can assure you that I have cleaned and cleaned and cleaned and cleaned all day. Now, Dan, why is that pick sticking out the side? Well, that also has the distinction of coming from, let's see here, one of the local retired machinists ran a secondhand store, so we took care of that. I got a picture where I pulled this off. Just using a gland nut holder itself. I didn't need to use the socket because it fit just fine, and we were off to the races. Because you've got acres of room here to do this. Pull this off. And I have spent hours cleaning this thing. This, of course, is your feed nut for your vertical, and it clamps under like that. But while I was cleaning, it's like, something interesting. I ran into that. This hole right here. Actually, it sits in like this, and this hole is tapered down. Oop, there we go. What you gonna do? So, why is it tapered down, Dan? Well, it's because that's a lube port. I didn't know it was there. This thing was so filthy you couldn't see it. So when I managed to get it apart, get it cleaned, move this over, you can see right here there is a port. And if you remember from the previous video, the spindle head sits just like this. It sits level, and then the oiler drips down into here, and it comes forward and it lubes here and here and then in the back. Well, also with this little port, which is in the center channel, it also leads the vertical, feeds the lubrication to that. which I thought was pretty neat, and frankly, if I hadn't been paying attention, I would have walked right past it. So this was, as you can imagine, packed full of gunk and junk. So got that cleaned out, and now it makes absolute sense on what's going on. The reason I had the pick installed in it is so when I put this nut back in, I can have this aligned. Otherwise, if you turned it, you wouldn't have any lube feed to that. So again, this is drip feed. This is nothing spectacular, and it's drip feed coming off of a wick. So it's really not anything super. Okay, so I shared that. In addition to that, you can see the sides. I just lightly cleaned them up and stoned them. You'll see that we've got one cast iron defect right here. Get that out of the way. But other than that, I didn't have any significant real wear because we thought they might have been starved. I lightly stoned it. I don't really have anything I can catch my fingernails on, and frankly, their machining from the factory was not as fancy as you might have thought. I'm sure it's straight. I'm sure it did everything it needed to do, but you're there. Okay. Going to the opposite side. Much the same story. I just cleaned it all up because it was nasty, as you can imagine, and lightly stoned it with a 220 stone. I like these little ones I got. It's a Bay State stone. I've showed them before, but if you can find them out there, they're very handy because it is already cut at an angle. So for little places where you want to get into a groove or something like that, they work out really good. And again, that was a 220 grit. Nothing fancy. I wasn't trying to do anything or move any metal. I just wanted to clean it up and knock it down any high spots. And frankly, feels really nice. After I got done cleaning it and washing and all that other stuff, I hit it with a fluid film, wiped it down, and then did my little bit of stoning. And then I hit it with alcohol to clean it up and get rid of any residuals. And when I put it back together, I'm going to hit it with some fluid film as I assemble it, and then we'll get the regular lube circuit going. So that's where we're at for right then. The bearings, the inner bearing, or would you say the front bearing, right here is fit on with the, that's okay. So the bearing pushed on here, it was a very, very light press fit. I actually just set it, and I had my dead blow hammer, and it didn't even just tap it, and it just came right off. So, and there's no scoring where it's been moving or anything like that. So I think that was just the fit. The back fit was a press fit, but that's where it came apart, as I had to get this thing apart. But we'll go through that as we do the reassembly. Okay, beyond that, I did a little bit of a cleanup, not a super cleanup like some of our fellow creators do, but we got everything cleaned and all the gunk off, and I was using the purple stuff, doing it just to get the grease knocked back, and then washing it, do my normal stuff. I didn't use any nasty cleaners today, other than dishwashing soap, which I like just fine. Cut the grease back, and then the purple stuff, which is biodegradable, and we shouldn't have a problem for there. Okay, next up we're going to be putting the bearings in. If you'll notice on that one, I've got a still picture I'm going to add where I try to do a little favor for everybody and give you the measurements of all the fasteners that are in here to give you an idea of what you might need if you have be looking. But thread's on nice now. Before it was not so nice. Feed's on down, but as I said, I was cleaning this out, and it took probably an hour or two to get this out because it was filthy. And the lead screw, as far as the vertical, not a big deal at all. This has some looseness to it because of wear, but guess what? This is the sacrificial one. Can make one. This is not super complex, but you know what? For my needs, I think it's going to be just fine. I'm not doing a lot of precision work. Let me get this around where you can see it. So, as I mentioned, this is going to come up from the bottom. And it is not a very tight fit. You notice it popped right in. And then you have to kind of go fishing here. Ooh, look at that. Nailed it. Okay. That is the lube ports aligned. And you can go ahead and install this one. There's nothing else to it. Alright, we're going to work on the spindle. We've got to set it to chill so we can do a nice, easy fit. The bearings came in without issue and don't really have any big problems. Hours of cleaning, folks. Surface grinders, as others have mentioned before me, are nasty. They do a great job, but they are filthy just by their nature. Okay, we will bring you back as we get closer. Thanks. Hi, this is Dan back. We're going to see what we can get done here. I'm going to go ahead and do the front bearing. And I've had this chilling for 3 hours in the fridge. Actually, in the freezer. And it's kind of chilly. Let's see what happens here. I soaked it with fluid film. I'm going to put the letters in first, facing the center, so on both sides of this the lettering is going to be facing inward. Let's see just how close we can get. Pop. Check that out. Chilled it, and it dropped right in position. So on to the next major task. That was easy. I'll bring you back. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just drop this washer on, and I'll take it upstairs and snug it in a little bit. But using the locking clamp, it's what's important on this one. Hopefully it was I took it down the way it's appropriately supposed to be, but it's the cone end shapes goes down, so it's pushing on the center race. Okay, so take this, and I did hit this with fluid film before I did it in the freezer, so any condensation will pretty much have been displaced. I shouldn't have any flash rusting. I'm going to start this down. I'm going to lock it into that. Actually, the press fit on that front bearing isn't that much. I was surprised how little it really was. Based on what I'd read, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, it's going to be a seriously big issue," and I'm like, "Okay." So I was prepared for it, and in fact, it wasn't. Don't know. Variability in that stuff. This is the wrench that I used to break that off, and that is keeping with my convention here, a Fairmont number 472. Just hooks on right here, and I'm just going to pull it down a little bit. I locked it in the soft jaw earlier to get it in position. Okay. Alright, as soon as I get it up to where I want it, and I don't think the torque, because you're pushing the inner race up against a flat assembly right there, I don't think there's going to be a lot of torque required. It's not going anywhere. And then you bend the tab in to get it locked in position. So, with that, okay, it wasn't a lot of torque when it came off either, so. And I didn't find any torque specs for any of this. Okay, we are going to go upstairs. Indiana. Indiana's a white golden retriever. The hair's everywhere. So I will go snug this, and then I will bring you back. Okay, just a quick snug on that one, and lined it up with that finger, knocked it into position. Turns absolutely effortlessly, but with that little bit of drag you get with a nice precision bearing. Again, this is not a fancy bearing here, this is throw-out bearing, but it once it's under load, this is going to sit in, and this bearing is going to be held in by a snap ring up front, and it's going to provide the end play. It's going to be coming from the back bearing in conjunction with what's kind of really cool on this one is there is a spring pack in the back. Some folks described having a Belleville washer, 2 Belleville washers, but this one actually has a legitimate spring pack. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so that actually sits behind the rear bearing. I know, a little bit of dust. We'll blow everything off. Go from there. And sits in the back. This is all just fluid film is what it is. Just I didn't want this to flash rust. And some of these springs were in here really, really tight. I left them. It was going to be the expression borrowing trouble to get this done, so I didn't want to borrow trouble. And then the final one is one that really, really wouldn't release. Okay. And from there, I have a few more pieces to clean up. But then we'll be ready to put this spindle back together. Pretty excited about that. We'll talk about that as we go through it, but wasn't that bad. They kind of, like I said, they kind of built it up that it was going to be a massive undertaking. Only the strongest could survive, but no, not really. Wasn't that bad. Yes, I know a professional spindle shop would do a far better job than what I am, but guess what? This is just for home use. So we are going to continue on. Thanks for watching. I'll be right back. Okay, just doing a quick test here. The spindle into the housing. I'm going to call that okay. Okay. I'm going to lay in the snap ring now. As I mentioned, see, things are filthy. No matter how much I've cleaned, it has been an absolute challenge to keep it clean. Snap rings in. No problem. Drop right down to depth. Nobody got hurt. Okay. Now, that is secured. Notice there's a little bit of room. That's not that kind of bearing. Okay. We'll bring this back later when we get ready to do that. So for this, there's a snap ring down inside. And this is 360. Some of those are a little snugger than others. And that is going to provide somewhat equal tension across the bearing. Again, this one is the special one, the 204H. It goes in with the labels going inward. This is supposed to be just a light fit anyway. If we try it straight, it would probably be advantageous. Take the load off the spindle. Dropped right in. Okay. We are going to park it there for just a moment. Spindle is not loaded, and I'll bring it right back. Okay, we are going to discard some of this over there. Now, before you get too far, don't do my normal one and forget what you're doing. And I'm going to take this finger that one's gone. Okay, we're missing one tooth. It already split. Okay, fingers facing up. Now, this hasn't compressed the spring pack. Okay, so it's in there. It's lined up, but it has not compressed the spring pack. Remember the old tool we made? Next stop, we are going to it's threading nicely. We're not going to get to torque by hand. Anybody guess why? Yes, that's right. We have to compress the spring pack. Okay, So that's started. Oh, I got a little bit more. Okay. There, I don't, on the opposite end, I've got this on a V-block here. The spindle is not touching the bench, just so everybody's aware. I'm probably going to get more than a couple of well-deserved tune-ups on this process, but here we are. Okay. Dust shield. I'll face it upward because there's a flat right there. I'm going to do the set screw. It's bottomed. Okay. And I love my Bondus Allen wrenches. Okay, this is a 1/8. Tip it up. Just barely snugging that one. I don't want it to go anywhere, but I also... Nice. Okay. We have that. Turn it around for you. Oh, sheesh. All that careful... Yeah. All that careful preparation, and this is what I get. Turns very nicely, folks. I can't fault that. So I'm going to just let it lay like just like that. Yeah, I'm loading the spindle, but guess what? That's what you get. Okay, I have some gunk in here. This is the wheel adapter. And I'll bring you back. I'm going to go deal with this.